Zoning Board of Adjustment regular meeting. My name is Matt Perry and I'm chair of this board. I will now call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll so that we may verify the presence of quorum.
Board members Finlayson and Smikarova will be absent this evening. Board member Frias.
Here.
Hutchins.
Here.
Johannesson.
Aye.
Perry.
Here.
Sandberg.
Here.
Softly.
Here.
Wang.
Here.
We have 7 members present.
Which is quorum, and with that, we'll proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system, available at LIMS, LIMS.minneapolismn.gov. Is there a motion to approve this agenda?
So moved. Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against indicate by saying nay. That motion passes, and we have an approved agenda. I believe all of the board members have seen a copy of the minutes from the January 19th, 2023 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All against indicate by saying nay. Any abstentions? If you weren't here, you should abstain. And with that, the motion passes, so the minutes from the Zoning Board of Adjustment January 19th, 2023 meeting are approved. Mr. Verkota, are they petitions or communications?
Good afternoon, Chair Perry, members of the board. Staff has no petitions or communications at this time.
Thank you very much. Reminder to applicants and others, if you're going to speak at the public hearing, please sign in on the sheet over in the corner. And you can do that on your way out if you have not already done so. Also to applicants and others, please contact staff after the hearing with any questions regarding your projects. And lastly, if you have something like this, please turn it off or turn it on silent so as not to disturb today's proceedings. Let's review the agenda. I will read the agenda number and the address of the project and state whether it's slated for consent, continuance, withdraw, return, or discussion. Now, just discuss, we don't have any consent items, so I'll just talk about what discussion items are. These are items for which the board will take public testimony, deliberate on, and make a decision. After the public testimony has been heard for each particular discussion item, I will close the public hearing for that agenda item. Once I close the public hearing for an item, no additional public testimony will be taken, but staff may be asked to address board questions. After the public hearing for an item is closed, board members will then discuss and act on motions, and the chair does not vote except in the case of a tie. So we have one item on our agenda for land use requests. This is agenda item number 5, 945 Broadway Street Northeast, and it is a discussion item. As I said, we don't have any continuance items, so let's move right into the presentation on that item. Ms. Brandt.
Good afternoon, Chair Perry, members of the board. The application before you this evening is 945 Broadway Street Northeast. It's a site just shy of 1 acre, which is zoned I2 Medium Industrial District, IL Industrial Living Overlay District, BFC 6, Built Form Corridor 6 Overlay District. The future land use for this site is production and mixed use. The site is located at the northeast corner of Broadway Street Northeast and Central Avenue Northeast, both of which are designated goods and services corridors within the Minneapolis 2040 plan. And there is a plan to stop on the Metro F line, the arterial BRT project currently in planning stages at Metro Transit. The site is composed of 3 parcels, 2 of which are parking, the third of which is a 2-story building, which was constructed in 1921 as a mattress factory. And in 1993, it was converted to a multi-tenant commercial space, which is what it is today. There are a number of commercial tenants within the building, including the existing coffee shop, which is the subject of the variance application before you. The applicant is proposing to expand an existing coffee shop, which is highlighted in blue on the plan set up on the document camera, into an adjacent tenant space highlighted in yellow. The existing space is 3,860 square feet. The expansion would add 2,218 square feet to the space, a total of 6,078 square feet. The zoning code limits food and beverage uses to a maximum of 5,000 square feet of floor area in the I-2 district. The requested variance is to increase to allow, to go above this 5,000 square foot cap, increasing the maximum by 1,078 square feet or 21.6%. With regards to the required variance findings, staff does not find that there are practical difficulties on the site, including the whole of the space within the floor area that is subject to that 5,000 square foot cap, includes accessory uses and any sort of space that is used by the business within their tenant space. Counting this within the gross floor area is not a unique condition, but is in fact an intentional function of the way that the definition of gross floor area is written. The inclusion of these spaces within the tenant space, additionally, is a condition that has been created by the applicant. The first finding has not been met. The Minneapolis 2040 Comprehensive Plan has quite a bit to say about industrial zoning and land uses, several of which were highlighted in the staff report packet before you, specifically to allow production and non-production land uses within production mixed-use areas. And again, the future land use for the site is that production and mixed-use area. The plan also guides the city to establish land use regulations that encourage adaptive reuse of older industrial and commercial properties in production and mixed-use areas, including reuse that results in a change to non-production uses. The intent of the zoning code limit of 5,000 square feet is to limit the size of these uses in a way that preserves industrially zoned land for industrial uses. In 2007, the square footage cap was added to the zoning code, applied to the I-1 light industrial and I-2 medium industrial districts. This footprint cap does not apply or does not appear in the code for the I-3 general industrial district, as food and beverage uses are not allowed in that district, therefore no cap is required. This ordinance amendment in 2006 came out of the adoption of the city's industrial land use plan. So the code adoption in 2007 came out of the adoption of the city's industrial land use plan in 2006, which recommended strategies to counter the trend at the time of converting industrial buildings into commercial uses. Allowing food and beverage uses was one of these strategies, but with a floor area cap designed to keep these at a scale that was intending to serve employees of industrial areas. As you may know, the city is currently undergoing the next phase of our zoning code amendments to implement the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, the land use rezoning study. At current, the 5,000 square foot cap is intended to remain, however, in compliance with an additional strategy in the comprehensive plan, which directs cities staff to develop detailed planning guidance for production mixed-use areas, particularly those experiencing rapid growth and change, to better define the future of commercial and production space in those areas. Staff are considering revisions to gross floor area caps throughout the code. Staff finds that the proposal does not wholly meet the intent of the comprehensive plan or other adopted city policy. The proposal has not met the intent of the ordinance. Staff does find that the proposal would not alter the essential character of the area and would not be detrimental to the use or enjoyment of nearby properties or to the general health, safety, or welfare of the general public. Because the first and second findings have not been met, the staff recommendation is for the board to deny this variance request. I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Brandt. Are there any questions? Mr. Sandberg?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Perry and Ms. Brandt. I believe the 612 Brewery and Tap Room is on the same site. Is that true?
I believe so, yeah. Chair Perry, Board Member
Did-
Sandberg, I believe so.
Does that one conform to the 5,000 square feet? Or was there a variance granted for that business?
Chair Perry, Board Member Sandberg, I don't have the details of that specific tenant. However, in industrial areas, breweries are typically considered a food and beverage production because their primary use is the production of food and beverage rather than the serving of.
Oh,
So
so,
their principal use is as a brewery with an accessory space for a tap room.
okay, so it's not a food and beverage business per se.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and I guess one other question is, does this variance go with the property then? So that means that if 5,000 square feet were utilized by one tenant of the property, that would be the only business that could exist there?
Chair Perry, Board Member Sandberg, the 5,000, if the variance were to be granted, it would apply to this particular space. So if an additional tenant within the building were to request a variance, they would need to come before this board. If the current tenant were to leave the space and a new coffee shop or similar food and beverage use would propose to come in, they would be allowed to retain the 6,000 square foot.
Okay, but I guess my concern is another business, if this one were 5,000 square feet, another business could also start up on site and without a variance get another 5,000 square feet?
No, they would have to request the variances.
They'd have to request a variance because this one would have used up the allotment for this property. Is that correct?
I'm not quite sure that I understand.
I'm not sure, I'm not talking about the same space, but another tenant in the building,
Sure, another tenant in the building would have to procure an additional variance, similarly.
regardless of the size.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Verkota?
Sorry, Chair Perry, Board Member Sandberg, I think I follow where your question is going. Individual tenant spaces are limited to 5,000 square feet. So there could be several 5,000 square foot businesses, which would not be an issue, but any single business exceeding 5,000 would need a separate variance.
Mr. Softly?
Thank you, Chair Perry. I want to follow up quick on Mr. Sandberg's question, make sure I haven't gotten myself twisted around. If the variance were approved, this space would have the variance to exceed 5,000 feet. In 3 years, this tenant leaves the space. Is that variance transferable to a different unit within the principal structure, or is it limited to this suite or combination of suites?
Chair Perry, Board Member Softly, I believe it runs with the land. However, we would obviously have a look at if I'm understanding your question correctly, if a different use within the space were to request exceeding over the 6,078, we would look at that. I believe we would hold it to the specific space in question.
Okay. To phrase it differently, I'm wondering, would this then create an allotment for a single tenant somewhere in the building, anywhere in the building,
No.
to have an excess of 5,000 square feet? Okay.
Any other questions?
I do have a quick
yeah.
follow-up. Yeah, my
Yep.
initial question was wondering, is there anything in the code that right now would prohibit either the building owner or the tenant from creating a separate suite to accommodate the roastery and the office?
Chair Perry, Board Member Softly, they would have to create additional exterior entrance into that space. Uses that are commonly accessed within an interior hallway are regulated as a shopping center, which is not allowed in this district. However, walling off that space and adding an additional door to the exterior would be allowed, and they would be then under that 5,000 square foot cap.
Okay. And it's been a while since I've had a site visit here. If I'm not mistaken, the eastern frontage is elevated. The first floor on the eastern side is elevated maybe a good 6 or 8 feet above the sidewalk level. Is that right?
Chair Perry, Board Member Softly, I believe so. Along Broadway, this specific tenant is right at sidewalk level, or thereabouts. And then Central Avenue kind of pitches downwards so that it's a full 2 stories in the back.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hutchins?
Thanks, Chair Perry. Thanks for your presentation. Is there any room for practical difficulty to be considered with the extreme expansion of residential going in right next door? And then the Youngblood site being developed soon with the influx of residents, there needs to be amenities, and that it's zoned correctly now, sized correctly now for the load that it currently has, but if you're gonna influx that many people, the practical difficulty would be the cap is, the intent of the cap is to create a space for the right size to the neighborhood. The neighborhood's gonna drastically change in the next 2 years. Is there not room for practical difficulty with the influx of residents?
Chair Perry, Board Member Hutchins, something that the board could consider. I would suggest that given the sustained level of development that we've seen in the city, that's not a particularly unique condition for this site. And just to clarify a little bit, the intent of the cap was not that it's right-sized for the neighborhood per se, but that it's intended to scale the size of the use solely to serve employees of industrial areas.
Okay, thanks. I have one more follow-up if you got. Is there any ability for the applicant to go get rezoned, as it's not really industrial anymore? It's been gentrified, changed, developed in such a way that it's essentially not industrial anymore? Is there any room for them to do that?
Chair Perry, Board Member Hutchins, they would be able to. They would need to petition for an amendment to the comprehensive plan because this site is guided for production mixed use within the 2040 plan and is proposed to have a production mixed use zoning district within the new zoning scheme that will be coming out later this year. They would be able to, they would certainly be within their rights to request a rezoning. It would need to be accompanied by a request to amend the comprehensive plan.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions? So I just want to be clear, this property has been zoned and the zoning has been reviewed as part of the comprehensive plan that was just passed. Yes?
Yes.
And the ordinances that are being considered to go along with this zone, this type of zoning are, the intent is to keep them at 5,000 square feet. Is that what you also said?
Chair Perry, there are, the intent is to keep the 5,000 square foot cap. There is some discussion as to whether or not staff should add a little bit more nuance to uses that have floor area caps throughout the entirety of the code, not this one specifically,
Okay,
but generally, yes.
okay, great, thanks. I think we're all set. So let's open the public hearing. If you could, if the applicant would like to speak, if you could give your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, my name is Mark Thiroff, and I represent the property owner. I have got a couple of comments that I would like to make this afternoon, but I'd also like to have Kevin Wenzel from Spy House just talk to you briefly about their plans for the site so you get a better understanding of exactly what they'd like to do.
So if I may, what we do here
Yes.
is you get to speak, and then the next person gets to speak.
Okay.
It keeps it a little cleaner.
Very good.
And if we do transcripts as well, so it helps with keeping the transcript straight.
That's more than fine. We will do it that way.
Thank you.
Before I start my comments, I just wanted to follow up on the question about potentially limiting the variance, should you grant one, to this particular suite in this building. Putting aside what the code says, the applicant would be willing to agree to that condition if that were a condition of approval that you chose to impose here that allowed you to grant this variance. That would be fine with us, that we couldn't transfer this variance to another suite in the building. So just want to get that out there at the beginning.
Yeah, and I want to step in. I think what staff said is it goes with the land. That is, it goes with the suites and the space as it is. So it's not something that would be conditioned. The variance would, if it was granted, would grant it just like that.
Very good. That's
Okay.
fine. I wanted to just talk briefly to start with about the existing space, because this goes to the practical difficulties issue. Oh, it's up there. Okay. So I think it's important to understand that the existing space, the public area, the seating is here, there's counter seating, there's a walkway here, and the coffee preparation is here. That's the extent of the food and beverage use in the space. There's also a 500 square foot roastery and a 750 square foot office. Now, the roastery and the office,
I'm just going to remove this menu so that everyone can see all
thank you.
right. There.
thanks very much. So the roastery and the office serve all of Spy House's business. They have 7 coffee shops. They have an online coffee sales business. They sell coffee to grocery stores. So that roastery is not part of the food and beverage use in this space. So the limited amount of food and beverage use there is 2,600 square feet. And what they want to add is 2,218. So if you look at the plan when it's all done, 2,200 square feet here, and the, I think actually it's 2,600 square here, so we're under 5,000 square feet. So the only reason that there's discussion of us being over 5,000 square feet is because the office and roastery are being treated as food and beverage uses. They are not. The food and beverage use definition in the zoning ordinance does not include these uses. Staff gets there by suggesting that they are accessory uses to the food and beverage and therefore should be counted as food and beverage. We respectfully disagree with that interpretation of the code. We think that that's not correct. And so when Spy House went in October and applied for a building permit and was told that they couldn't proceed because of this 5,000 foot cap, we took a look at the code and tried to figure out the path forward, and it looked to us like an issue of zoning code interpretation. So we decided to make a request for a zoning administrator determination on the proper application of this zoning code provision. We made that request. We got a response back from the zoning administrator in early November, which confirmed the staff's interpretation of the ordinance. So we actually, in mid-November, commenced an appeal to this body of the zoning administrator's determination on this accessory use issue. Well, conversations continued with staff, and we were told that the permit could be approved if we would agree to put up walls to separate the roastery and the office. This was not something we were interested in doing for a number of reasons. One, it didn't seem to really make sense to us that you'd have the same uses in the same space, in the same dimensions, but just with walls up. We didn't see how that helps preserve industrial space or does anything that's supposed to be the purpose of the ordinance. And then on top of that, it would have changed the aesthetic in the space completely, and our tenant Spy House was not interested in having these big walls go up. And just to give you an idea of what this looks like, this is a photograph looking back into the space. On the right-hand side, those 2 double doors, that's the office. And then you can see, it's a little bit hard to see, in the very back you can see the roastery. This is a picture that's taken from the coffee preparation area. None of these spaces are public. The public doesn't go there, but you can visually, you can see it. You can see the roasting machine, you can see the raw brick wall in the back. And aesthetically, they wanted to keep that. And putting up walls would have just chopped up the space, so we didn't want to do that. We were also told, as another alternative, we could instead apply for a variance. We were already on a path with an appeal of the zoning administrator's determination, but we kind of got the understanding that it was the preference of staff that we go the variance route, because then you would be making a decision based on one property rather than a decision that would apply across the city in interpreting the ordinance. So we agreed, we withdrew our appeal, and started this variance process. To be clear, nobody promised to us a staff recommendation of approval, but nevertheless, we were a little bit surprised to see the recommendation that you got, that the application be denied. So turning to the staff report, I think it's very important to underscore how much is changing in this area. If I got that upside down, I have. So staff provided you with the current zoning map, which shows we're in the dark gray, which is I-2, the light gray is I-1. But as was referenced, we've had so much happening here. The 13th and Tyler apartment building is going here. That's roughly 120 units. The Youngblood site is here. That's 600 housing units. These two properties here, one's the Crown Center, the other one's the name I forget. Those are now offices. That's the Armory. This is owned by the post office. None of this is industrial. Over here, this is a drug treatment rehabilitation center. This is the Waterbury building, more offices. This is the Highlight Center. None of this is industrial. This, by the way, is all residential to the south, single-family homes in here, mostly single-family homes in here, and of course, all single-family down there as well. And then the zoning that is coming is down zoning this area. It's kind of hard to see the colors, but the current I-1, I-2, I-3 zoning categories are being divided up into two new categories, production and production mixed use. Our site will be production mixed use, which is a down zoning in industrial intensity. You can see that the dark purple is being limited to the mid-city industrial area over here, and then some areas up over here. And this area where our site is located is right there in the middle of this production mixed use zone. As far as the guiding goes, the 2040 plan has this as Corridor 6. Corridor 6, of course, calls for buildings of 2 to 6 stories, much more intensive development than what's been going on there. And this property is on a goods and services corridor as well. So it's exactly the kind of place where you want to put a restaurant. It's going to be on the F line. It's got tons of housing going on, and this isn't where you're likely to see any industrial or production uses coming in the future. So turning to the required findings, staff indicated that this would not alter the essential character of the locality or be injurious to the use or enjoyment of the property or other property, wouldn't be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the general public. It's a reasonable use. The two sticking points were the consistency with the spirit and intent of the ordinance, and then the practical difficulties. The comprehensive plan. I mean, looking at the comprehensive plan, the mere fact that this is Corridor 6, I think is a pretty strong indication of what is intended to happen at this site. It's small-scale commercial activity to serve housing and other uses that you want to put on high-speed transit lines. As far as the intent of the ordinance goes, staff referred to an ordinance that the cap was adopted in 2007. I pulled the staff report from that time, and it said that the purpose of the 5,000-foot cap was as follows. By limiting the overall scale of food and beverage uses in the industrial districts, the city is ensuring that the uses allowed in industrial districts will have available and adequate space to locate. This is a second-story small space in a building with no freight elevator, surrounded by yoga studios and coffee shops and Tear Market and fitness studios and so forth. You're never going to see an industrial use go in this space. Finally, on the practical difficulties piece, obviously the unique circumstance here is that this 2,600 square feet of existing food and beverage use is co-located with the office and the production uses, and it's being treated as all food and beverage. That is our unique circumstance here, and it's not one that was created by the applicant. When that happened, this building was owned by a different entity, And the Spy House Coffee was owned by a different company as well. So you have a new building owner and a new coffee shop owner trying to deal with the existing space and make it nice and make it so we can bring a restaurant into the neighborhood. So just in conclusion, I would just like to say, regardless of what happens here today, this space will never have an industrial use in it. So I think it makes perfect sense to allow this to move forward and for the variance to be granted. Thank you.
There may be questions for you. Are there any questions? Yes, Mr. Johannesson.
Thanks, Chair Perry. I guess the question, you talk about how the roastery and the office weren't part of the tenant's doing. I'm confused by that, because to me, it seems like the roastery still provides coffee beans for the coffee shop.
That's true. I think there's two questions there. On the second one, what is the relationship between the roastery and the existing coffee shop? It is fewer than 10% of the beans that are roasted in that roastery end up getting served in coffee cups in that coffee shop. But it is served by that roastery, just like all of the other Spy House locations. But it's a corporate use. You know, it serves the company as a whole rather than being that roastery could be at some other location and you would still have the coffee shop there. The beans would just get delivered.
That's what I'm getting. Is that a possibility? Could the roastery be moved out of that space and into another space to serve another coffee shop and
Mr.
eliminate
Wenzel
that square footage?
Speak to that. I think that would be a fairly significant undertaking. And the roastery is part of that space, and it's part of its appearance. And I'll let Mr. Wenzel address that.
I agree. Aesthetically, it's part of the brand, I guess, in a way. But to have the space to have the restaurant, it seems to me like there are other options, because I totally see these as accessories to the restaurant.
Well, let's not forget that the roastery is 510 square feet. If you take out that 510 square feet, you are still, through staff's calculation, you're still over 5,000. Eliminating the roastery doesn't get the total square footage below 5,000. So if all of it is food and beverage, eliminating the roastery isn't a solution.
I have a question. One of the things you said is that it'll never be an industrial use. Why haven't you, and you were thinking about going through an appeal of the zoning administrator, why didn't you consider getting it rezoned to something that maybe is more appropriate? Maybe the comprehensive plan is wrong, even though they just did it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Chair Perry.
So why not pursue that avenue?
If we weren't standing in an environment where we had the Van Buren amendments to the comprehensive plan last week, I would say that to go for a comprehensive plan amendment in an era when the comprehensive plan hasn't even been fully implemented is virtually impossible. I've never contemplated going back to a planning commission and saying, you've just completed a 5-year process and guided this property in this way, and I'm going to suggest to you got it wrong. I mean, that's just not an application that has much chance of succeeding. And it seems like we're bending, we're talking about moving structures and rezoning properties and so forth when there is a perfect solution here that doesn't require all of those extraordinary measures, and that is a variance.
Sure. And as you well know, we have to have the legal findings to support that.
I do, and I believe we've given them to you in our submission.
Yes, I read it. Thank you. Oh, Mr. Hutchins, you have one more. Okay.
Thanks, Chair Perry. Because of the age of the building and the configuration of it before the current owners took occupancy, is there a current entrance to that expansion from the exterior? Can you enter it from Broadway Avenue?
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Both the existing space and the new space have entrances from Broadway and have entrances from the internal hallway in the building.
Okay. Is there any design consideration difficulty with the age and current layout of the building as it stands today?
A difficulty in accomplishing what?
When you're designing it, the age of the building has to be taken into account. You can't, rebuild the entire building. So is there a practical difficulty in complying with the zoning ordinance because of the age, size, configuration of the building as it stands now before you got there?
I understand the question. We have been able to accomplish a design that accommodates everything with the limitations of the building. You may notice in the floor plan there is currently a wall separating the existing space from the expansion space with doors in it. That's staying. That would be doors there. It's perhaps a load-bearing wall. Perhaps our designer could speak to that. Yeah, I don't know. We've been able to accomplish what we're hoping to accomplish with the existing space.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sandberg?
Oh, yes, thank you. You showed us a picture of the entrance to the office, which was a glass door, but you said is that include a glass wall? And if so, is that sufficient to isolate the office from the other space, according to staff, as a separate usage space?
That might be a question for staff, Board Member Sandberg. I can tell you that we did have some conversations about different solutions that we proposed that were short of full floor-to-ceiling walls, and those were not deemed acceptable. But yes, right now it's 2 glass doors. It's otherwise a wall, and it has 2 glass doors to the office, and that's the only entrance to the office.
Okay. Thanks for your testimony.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Anyone else like to speak in favor of this? If you give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Kevin Wenzel. I am the president of Spy House Coffee Roasters in Minneapolis here. So I want to take a little bit of time and give you my perspective on our role in the community as a business, hopefully to give a little bit more depth and context to why it is that we're doing what it is that we'd like to do. So, Mr. Chair and members of the board, I appreciate the time. Again, my name is Kevin Wenzel, and I'm the president of Spy House Coffee Roasters. For those of you that may not know, we've been in Minneapolis operating coffee and cafes since 2000 and have been providing locally roasted specialty coffee since 2013. This expansion is our response to the excitement and the knowledge of the evolution of our community. We consider ourselves to be a steward of a specific and particular role inside the community. And this expansion is not simply a way for us to move forward in an economic advantage for our business, but to be better stewards of our community. We've been successfully operating 6 metro area cafes to sell our roasted coffees to more than 75 local grocery stores, restaurants, cafes, and bakeries. But we feel that we are much more than a sum of our financial successes. We are a committed partner in the Whittier, in the Uptown, in the North Loop, in the Northeast communities, as well as the downtown community with our cafes that we serve here in Minneapolis. And it's our role in stewardship in this community that I would ask for your consideration as you make your decision today. As a cafe, we hold a unique stewardship position for our communities. Our cafes and coffee shops have long held a role of a community's meeting and connection spot. So every day people leave from their homes to go to work to our cafes, to finish term papers in our cafes, to meet other community members in our cafes, to hold business meetings in our cafes, to close real estate deals in our cafes, and even fall in love in our cafes. In the past 2 months alone, I've had 5 requests for engagement photo shoots for couples who had met, who had their first date or had proposals in our cafes. We have even had a couple that wanted to take their pregnancy pictures in our cafe to, pardon the pun that I didn't like, but they used it to spill the beans about their pregnancy through photos in our cafe, which was the place where they met. For many in our communities, we are part of their life story. So more than just a place to grab a terrific cup of coffee, Spy House is an essential part of the communities we serve, providing the place where people meet and lives converge. We welcome and foster the community use of our space. It's not a responsibility we take lightly, and it's not without its financial burden. After all, where else in the community can you secure a place to spend 3 to 4 hours conducting the various businesses of your day for quite literally the price of a cup of coffee? So when we began to see the development that was outlined, the evolution, the growth happening around us, the 729 residential units that are going in and being developed, our response and excitement was one of anticipatory desire to expand, and it was much more than just simple economics. It's a very real and authentic desire to evolve and grow our capacity to continue to serve this community, a community we've invested in for many years and are hopeful that we can continue to do so for many more. The need for additional food options in this moment, in the future, and in this community is very, very real. And the expansion of our square footage to be able to address this need is doubly important when you consider the additional space we can offer our growing community to continue to come to Spy House for all those reasons I mentioned, and the reasons that people currently seek out our coffee shops. Our community's lives happen in our cafes. When our communities grow, we should be able to grow with them and meet their needs. And so I'm asking for your consideration and support, given the supporting information that Mark provided you to do just that. So, thank you. I'll take any comments,
Any questions?
questions.
I don't see any. Thanks for your testimony. Anyone else like to speak in favor of this application? I see no one. Anyone who would like to speak against this application? I also see no one. So let's close the public hearing. Board comment? I have a question of staff. It sounds like you've been working with the applicant or the applicant's representative on trying to find a way to meet the requirements, but have not. Can you speak a little bit to this walled area that they talked about and what you were trying to accomplish with that and why what they've got is not sufficient?
Thank you, Chair Perry. You're correct that we have been working with the applicant team on this for some time, trying to figure out a solution that is amenable to everyone. With regards to the wall, part of how we determine what is or is not one tenant space is part of the physical circulation of the space, but also sort of the visual impact. Does it look like it's separate? Are you able to not walk into that space in order to consider it to be a separate tenant and therefore not subject to the square footage cap?
Okay.
So I believe at one point, it wasn't a formal proposal, but they had pitched like a half wall, like a pony wall. And that was, run past the zoning manager, Mr. Ellis, and the zoning administrator, Steve Poor, determined not to be sufficient to separate that out into a new tenant space.
I think it's just important to understand it's not the city trying to do something silly and make an applicant jump through hoops that doesn't make sense. But there's some logic behind what you're trying to have them accomplish so that they can meet the spirit of the code. Any other board comment? Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Softly.
Thank you, Chair Perry. I think it's a really, a very reasonable proposal, and I actually think it meets the finding number 3, but I don't think it meets practical difficulties, and I haven't heard an argument for why it does at this point. So I'm in favor of staff position.
Anyone else? Mr. Hutchins?
Thanks, Chair Perry. I guess looking for a practical difficulty, I would look to explore the idea of the age of the building, the configuration of the building, the style of the building is, you don't see it very often. So I think there's room to talk about a practical difficulty there. If anybody has anything to say on it, I'd love to hear it. And to go to Mr. Softly, I think the spirit is 100% met here with the 2040 plan. We're trying to create uses, the high density you need to create. usable spaces next to all the high density. So I think this is exactly in line with the spirit and intent of the ordinance. I can understand where the 5,000 square foot cap is in place so that you don't have a mega restaurant where you have a lot of turnover and a lot of population in and out, but the type of customer that they're serving, to the applicant's point, they're extended stay customers. They're doing a lot of office time, meeting time. It's not necessarily food and beverage solely being used in the way we traditionally think of it that way. So I think the spirit is there. I think I'd look to, if anybody else can build on that practical difficulty, I'd love to hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchins. Anyone else? Mr. Sandberg?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Perry. I think this is a project that should go through. I think it's appropriate for the area. I think what's not appropriate is the zoning for this space. And unfortunately, we can't
laughing.
make decisions about what zoning should be there. So I think that I think staff did a good job of assessing it with the current zoning, but I think appeal for zoning change would be much more appropriate. Or at least the decision of the zoning administrator on the use of the space that's not just unique for this particular business. The fact that the office in the roaster utilizes the space for only 10% of this particular business, I think is also a good argument. But none of those, I think, support the findings, and I'm having trouble coming up with a practical difficulty finding for this as well. So I think the applicant should pursue other approaches to get this good project done.
Mr. Johannesson?
I agree with Board Member Sandberg. I do think it needs to be rezoned into a commercial space. And I think I agree, it's not in our court.
Anyone else? I would entertain a motion from someone then. Mr. Softly?
Thank you, Chair Perry. I move to deny the variance notwithstanding staff recommendation for finding 3 that the proposed variance will in fact, or I'm sorry, notwithstanding staff recommendation for finding number 2, that in fact finding number 2 is met, but that practical difficulties have not been
I
established.
see. Okay.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Frias? Aye. Hutchins?
No.
Johannesson?
Aye.
Sandberg?
Aye.
Softly?
Aye.
Wang?
Aye.
That's 5 yeas and 1 nay.
So that means your request has been denied. You've obviously been in communication with staff. You can talk about to staff what your options are going forward. And I appreciate you coming down. And I wish you the best of luck in accomplishing what you're trying to do. I think it'll be great for the area. All right. That concludes our land use. We do have a board member who is leaving us. We have several who are leaving us, but Ms. Frias is leaving us today. This is her last meeting. So you didn't know this was happening, but we do a resolution of appreciation when someone leaves us. So I'd like to read that off, if I may. Jasmine Frias, whereas the Minneapolis Zoning Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial citizen review panel that provides direction and regulation on zoning business within the city of Minneapolis, and whereas Jasmine has served on the board since 2020 and has participated in over 50 public hearings and acted on over 170 board items, And whereas Jasmine's background in urban and regional planning allowed her to assist the board by ensuring the decision-making process was thoughtful and complete. And whereas Jasmine's ability to intently listen to public testimony allowed her to fairly balance the interests of the applicant's projects, the spirit and intent of the city ordinance, and the concerns of the greater community. And whereas the board wishes to formally recognize Jasmine's dedicated service to the Minneapolis Zoning Board of Adjustment and City, now therefore it be resolved by the Minneapolis Zoning Board of Adjustment and the staff to the Minneapolis Zoning Board of Adjustment of the City of Minneapolis, that we extend to her our best wishes for good health and happiness in all of life's endeavors, trusting that the friendships and understanding built in our mutual undertakings will be with us always. So I'll hand this down to you. We have another board member who will be leaving us. His last meeting is today, but we are working on the resolution for Mr. Sandberg. But I'd like to just briefly say that Dick has been on the board almost as long as I have. I can't imagine the count of number of meetings you have been at. But I do want to say, we'll do this more formally when you get back into town. But I do want to say that I've appreciated your insight and intent, maybe this is too strong a word, but I think your advocacy for all things downtown and your fair and balanced approach to trying to make sure the applicants are well heard and their projects go forward as much as possible. I really appreciate that, and it's been an honor serving with you.
Great. Well, thank you for those kind words. I appreciate all the board members here and their insights. It's been a pleasure to work with them, and especially with city staff. The quality of the reports and analysis that we get is excellent. So, thank you.
All right. So that is all of our official business. Is there any new business? Oh, we have new business.
Chair Perry, members of the board, not really new as so much as an update. As we've just discussed, there are going to be some vacancies around the board. We have candidates moving through the approvals process, and it is anticipated that they will be seated on time as expected sometime in March. That will either be on the 2nd or the 16th. They'll have their first meeting. It kind of depends on when the council takes their action and when those actions are published, but we are on track to have those new board members seated soon. Also, on behalf of staff, I would like to thank board members Sandberg and Frias for all of their time and commitment to the board.
Yes, I should say, just to follow up with staff, one of the things that I didn't mention is this is a board that is not, it's hard to get people to actually serve on this board. It's kind of a nerdy board without a lot of flash and fame. So I appreciate when people are able to get to the meetings and do their homework and all that it takes to be good board members. So thank you for that. That's sort of an add-on to what I already said. So thank you for that. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
For everyone. For more information and to find your council member, go to the City of Minneapolis website.